Maybe all you need is a manicure. Hello and welcome to Sober Living Snippets, where we get sober and happy so we can heal our relationships, feel youthful again, and ditch regret and shame. I'm Becca Jacobson. Welcome aboard. Yesterday, we talked about a whole bunch of reasons why you've got to adopt self-love. That's right, self-love. Today, we're going to talk about how. How. Not just why, but how. So here's the thing, okay, right? So when I'm researching this, you know what I ended up finding? It made me laugh. A bunch of ways to do self-care. And I'm just like, really? That's the best you can come up with? I mean, honestly, we can all come up with ways to look after ourselves. You know, maybe a manicure is what you like, or you can take time out for self-care in a million different ways. That is not what we're talking about today. You can figure that out if no, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, honestly, how do you like yourself when you don't like yourself? We're not going superficial here. And the reason this, really shocked me was because I personally despised myself. And, I've talked about this before with you. I have a past. We all have a past. Mine's a little bit colorful. I was a prostitute for 14 years, and so on and so forth. And I came out of that with very deep shame and lack of self-esteem and all that crap. And I'm telling you right now that a manicure wasn't going to help me with that. It just wasn't going to do it. Right? That's what I mean. So how do we start liking ourselves? If we don't like ourselves, how do we? Well, first step. We talked about this yesterday. The first step, my dear, is to make a decision. First, decide that you're willing. Get willing to like yourself. Get willing to go from there to loving yourself. In fact, that's the first, second, and third step. That's the whole thing in a nutshell right there. I've told this story before. When I was in the treatment center in 2018, I ended up in a residential treatment center. One of the counselors there, sorry for the listeners who know this story, but here it is again. One of the counselors noticed, like every counselor I've ever had, noticed how little self-esteem I had and how much I didn't like myself. You can tell by my language, just the way I talked about myself. And all the counselors over the years are like, oh, we can build self-esteem this way or that way, or we can work on this. We'll do therapy. And I'm like, whatever. And this guy, this guy just looked at me and said, I said to him, he noticed it. He said, well, I noticed, you've got pretty low self-esteem. I'm like, yeah, I've heard that before. And I said, I don't have the energy to do years of therapy in order to get over it. And he looked at me and he said, why don't you just decide to like yourself then? And I went, what do you mean? He said, you could just make a decision, Becca. You could just decide, I think I'm going to start liking myself. And I went, what, that's it? Like now and then that's it? It's over? He said, well, why not? And I thought, oh, okay. And I went back to my room and thought about that. And I thought, geez, that guy's right. I don't need years of therapy. I'll just decide. Now, here's the thing. Yes, it took longer than that, but that was a significant and profound beginning. And that's why I'm saying to you today, have you decided to do this? What comes next is, it might take a little bit of time. Here's some stuff you want to do. You start with the decision, and it really is that simple. Stop being stubborn about it. And by the way, let me remind you that deciding you're the worst human being on earth is an ego trip. That's another thing that people don't like to hear. I know it's not soft and mushy, but it is an ego trip. Deciding you're the worst, or you're not good enough, or you're not a nice person, or you're not smart enough, or you've done bad things is really just an ego trip looking for a place to land. It's actually looking for people to, oh no, yes you are. You're amazing. Don't say that about yourself. We're looking for, I know you don't want to hear it, but that's the fact. And it's not intentional. I'm not saying that you're doing it intentional. But by holding on to this lack of self-liking, you're just sort of putting it out there in the world that, oh, poor me. Let's buck up here, like put their shoulders back, tie up your shoes, buckle up your jacket, whatever you need to do, stand up straight and go, wait a minute, screw that. I'm going to make a decision to join the land of the living and start liking myself. That's it. And then once you do that, you're going to find yourself falling back into your old ways. You're going to hear yourself saying things about yourself that aren't very nice. And by the way, one of the things that we want to do when we take this journey is stop saying negative things about ourselves. Oh, I'm so stupid. Oh, well, that figures. That's typical of me. That type of stuff has to end. Now, what's going to happen is you're going to do it automatically. And that's fine. That's okay. This is where we can get a little soft, a little bit more gentle with ourselves. You're in the habit of talking that way. It's going to take time. All you have to do is make the decision that you've had enough and then start watching. Watch your language about yourself. Watch, even more importantly, watch your thoughts. How are you thinking about yourself? And when you catch yourself getting negative thoughts about yourself, negative language, correct yourself. You don't have to be sharp. Oh, there I go again, because then you're just doing it again, right? Instead, just gently, oh, wait a minute. Maybe I don't want to use that word in reference to myself. For example, I'm so stupid. I hear that a lot. So you can just gently say, oh, wait a minute, maybe that's not the way. And just remind yourself and carry on. Don't feel bad about it. Just carry on. And slowly, slowly, it fades away. Over time, you stop using the language automatically. You start speaking more kindly about yourself. And then that starts to build your self-esteem from the inside. And you start going, wait, you know what? I am okay. Wait a second. I'm a worthwhile person. You know what? What I've done in the past, I can forgive myself. Now, if you've done some things in the past that are pretty rotten like I had, that takes some work. The way that I worked through that was by writing out my stories. I wrote out all the things that I was ashamed of. I wrote out in my journal because what I would do is the opposite. I don't want to think about that. That's too horrible to remember that I did that. And I don't want to remember that. And I don't want to think about that. And so I not forced myself, but I took a deep breath, sat down and thought, okay, I've been running from that particular memory for years. Instead, I'm going to sit here, be gentle, take a breath, and write out the whole episode in my journal and see what it really looks like. And by the end of writing it out, I was able to go, yeah, that kind of sucks. But you know what? It was 20 years ago. I didn't know any better. That's all I knew. That's what my life at the time, that's what I had to work with. I did the best I could and I survived. Today I'm a different person. I think I'll forgive her. And I also started looking at myself like that. Not like I don't look at myself as Becca here, standing here talking to you. That Becca from 20 years ago is a different person. So I can talk to her or think about her as a different person. And when I wrote out those episodes from years ago, that's how I thought of her. Like, wow. In fact, I felt a lot of compassion for her because she had been through so much and done things that really, honestly, she shouldn't have done and that hurt her. And so I started feeling deep compassion for her and I was able to forgive her and hence myself. So this is a very, very powerful process and it's going to be a live class we're going to do in the Sober Living community. If you haven't heard, I've started up a couple of weeks ago, Sober Living community for all my snippet lovers. You are welcome. It's free. The link is in the show notes. I'm starting very soon. I'm going to be doing regularly live shows, not live shows. I'm going to do live classes, webinars on key snippets, and this is going to be one of them. I'm going to walk you through how I made a decision to like myself and then how I set about actually doing it. I just gave you a real quick rundown on some of it. There was more to it. This did not take years of therapy and it works. I am not telling you not to get therapy. I would never say that. If you want to go to therapy, if you have a therapist, that is great. That's great. I've had many of them in my day. I'm not asking you to replace your therapist for this, okay? So please hear that. But I'm also telling you that if you don't want to go that route, you can try this route and you can do both. So there it is. All right, so there's some ways. The most important one for today is make that decision. Just realize you can just decide. I've had enough of this and I am going to join the land of the living. And from there, you can start healing. So your due for today matches yesterday's. Have you made that decision? Today's the day to decide. Today is the day to make that decision. What does that mean? It means you could decide, no, I'm going to hell with that. I'm just going to keep hating myself. Or you can decide, I'm going to try what Becca said, and I'm going to see what happens if I try to stop hating myself. It's a decision. That's your due. Make a decision. It can go either way. And I'll be back tomorrow with tons of stuff just for you. I don't even know what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. I love it when that happens. I guess we'll both find out. Bye for now. Thanks for popping in. Be sure to come back tomorrow so we can keep your head on straight. Sending you buckets of love.